Talk about that special feeling you get when you wake up, check your phone, and realize the world has, once again, decided to set itself on fire. For the crypto world, that morning was September 12th, 2025. While most of us were grappling with the profound decision of whether to hit snooze again, a quiet catastrophe was unfolding. $1.5 billion. That's billion with a B, as in bye-bye life savings. That's how much Ethereum had vanished from the digital vaults of Bybit, one of the biggest crypto exchanges on the planet. This wasn't a small rounding error or a misplaced decimal point. This was the digital equivalent of watching the entire GDP of a small nation get loaded onto a truck and driven off a cliff. Imagine the sheer gut-wrenching panic. One moment, there are numbers on a screen that represent your dreams. A house, a retirement, maybe even a ludicrously expensive JPEG of a monkey. The next moment, those numbers are gone, replaced by a gaping, soul-crushing void. This wasn't just a hack, it was a digital apocalypse served for breakfast. The news spread like a contagion through social media, with each post and every refresh of the page adding another layer of dread. The number was so absurd, so cartoonishly large, that it felt unreal. It was the kind of figure you'd expect a movie villain to demand. Now, for this story to have its full, tragic impact, you need to understand who Bybit is, or at least who we thought they were. This wasn't some shady, fly-by-night exchange run out of a teenager's basement. No, Bybit was a behemoth, a titan of the crypto industry. Founded in 2018, it had exploded in popularity, becoming one of the top 5 derivatives exchanges in the world by volume. They had flashy sponsorships with Formula One teams. Major esports organizations carried their logo. Their branding was everywhere, projecting an image of sleek, modern, and most importantly, impenetrable security. They were the grown-ups in a room full of hyperactive children. Their reputation was built on operational excellence and robust security protocols. They constantly bragged about their 100% cold wallet system. All customer funds kept offline, away from the grubby hands of would-be hackers. This was their key selling point. They positioned themselves as the Fort Knox of crypto, a digital fortress. They had layers of security, multi-signature approvals, a team of experts whose job was to think like criminals. They weren't just promising security. So, how did they do it? How did our shadowy antagonists pull off the digital heist of the century? Well, it wasn't with some impossibly complex quantum computer or a scene out of the Matrix. No, the truth is far more mundane and frankly far more embarrassing. The hack didn't start with a brilliant line of code. It started with a person. Specifically, it began with a targeted phishing attack on a high-level software vendor that provided a critical library used in Bybit's internal transaction management system. This wasn't a frontal assault on the castle walls. It was poisoning the water supply miles away. The attackers, later suspected to be the infamous Lazarus Group, sent a carefully crafted email to an employee at this third-party vendor. The email looked like a legitimate job offer from another major tech company, complete with a PDF attachment that was supposedly a detailed job description. But, of course, it wasn't. That PDF was a Trojan horse containing malware that, once opened, silently installed a keylogger and gave the hackers a backdoor into the vendor's systems. From there, they waited patiently, gathering credentials and studying the company's software development process. The moment the news broke, the crypto market did what it does best. It panicked violently. The price of Ethereum immediately nosedived. It was a bloodbath. Charts that were green hours earlier flipped to red. A canyon-sized dip erased billions in market cap. Everyone tried to sell at once. A feedback loop of fear took hold. If you owned ETH, you watched your net worth dissolve in real time. It was like a bank run, but with millions of simultaneous clicks on the sell button. Pure, unadulterated terror. Social media exploded. Bybit subreddit flooded with posts. Crypto Twitter erupted. Users posted screenshots of zeroed balances. Support messages went unanswered. Threads tallied losses, a few $100s to life-altering sums. The emotional toll was immense. Evangelists faced the horrifying reality they'd led friends and family into a financial wood chipper. So, the hackers have their $1.5 billion in Ethereum. Now what, you can't exactly walk into a Lamborghini dealership and pay with a USB stick full of stolen crypto. At least not yet. You have to launder it. You have to make it look clean. And what followed was a masterclass in digital money laundering that made the schemes in Ozark look like a child's lemonade stand. The first step was to move the funds out of the initial wallet immediately. Within minutes of the heist, the entire sum was split into thousands of smaller amounts and sent to a web of newly created wallets. This is the digital equivalent of taking a giant pile of cash and stuffing it into 1,000 different shoeboxes. This initial scattering was just the beginning. The hackers then employed a technique called chain hopping. They used decentralized cross-chain bridges to move the funds from the Ethereum network to other blockchains, Avalanche, Solana, Monero. Each hop added a new layer of complexity, making the money trail harder to follow. Imagine trying to track a package that's constantly being rerouted through a dozen different shipping companies, each with its own tracking system. It's a logistical nightmare by design, intended to frustrate and exhaust anyone trying to follow the trail. The real magic, however, happened when the hackers started using crypto mixers, also known as tumblers. Services like Tornado Cash are essentially giant digital blenders for cryptocurrency. You put your dirty crypto in, it gets mixed together with a massive pool of other people's crypto, some legitimate, some not. As soon as the stolen funds started moving, the global crypto community sprang into action. It was like the Avengers assembling, but with more screen time and, less spandex. Major blockchain analytics firms like Chainalysis Elliptic immediately began tracking the stolen Ethereum, flagging the hackers' wallets in real time. They shared this information publicly, creating a sort of crowdsourced dragnet. Any centralized exchange that received funds from a flagged address was instantly put on notice. It was really like a global neighborhood watch program, where everyone was watching everyone else's wallets. This collaborative effort paid off pretty quickly. When the hackers tried to cash out small amounts on various exchanges, their attempts were often blocked. The moment the tainted funds hit an exchange's hot wallet, compliance systems would trigger an alert and the account would be frozen. In the first 48 hours, several $1 million were successfully intercepted and frozen across a dozen different platforms. It wasn't much compared to the total amount stolen, but it was a significant victory. It proved that the industry could, when properly motivated, work together to police itself. This was the crypto world fighting back. Of course, the big guns were soon called in. The FBI Interpol whispers grew louder that the attack bore all the hallmarks of the Lazarus Group, a state-sponsored hacking syndicate linked to North Korea. It was a frustrating game of whack-a-mole on a global scale. So what did we learn from this billion-dollar bonfire? Well, the first and most obvious lesson is one that crypto purists have been screaming from the rooftops for years. Not your keys, not your coins. The entire premise of a centralized exchange is built on trust. You are trusting them to hold your assets for you, and as the Bybit hack so brutally demonstrated, that trust can be vaporized in an instant. This event became the single greatest advertisement for self-custody in history. Suddenly, the hassle of managing your own private keys with a hardware wallet didn't seem so bad compared to the alternative of waking up to a balance of zero. The second lesson is that security is not just about writing impenetrable code. It's about people. The fatal flaw in Bybit's fortress wasn't a bug in their smart contracts. It was a human being at a partner company clicking on a malicious PDF. This really highlights the immense importance of defending against social engineering and supply chain attacks. A third, more optimistic lesson came from the industry's reaction. Came together to track the stolen funds. A watershed moment. In the past, the crypto space has often been characterized as a Wild West, but this coordinated response showed maturity and shared responsibility. You might think that a $1.5 billion heist would be an extinction-level event for a cryptocurrency. But here's the funny thing about crypto markets. They have the memory of a goldfish with a concussion. After the initial terrifying plunge, the price of Ethereum began to recover. Why? Because Bybit had promised to cover the losses. The stolen Ethereum wasn't going to be dumped on the market, and users weren't going to lose their shirts. The market decided that since the hole was being plugged with Bybit's money, the crisis was largely contained. This bizarre resilience, however, did not go unnoticed by governments around the world. Regulators, who were already circling the crypto industry like hungry sharks, saw the Bybit hack as the perfect opportunity to strike. The calls for stricter regulations grew from a murmur to a roar. This event accelerated the push for new technologies and standards. There was a renewed focus on developing more secure multi-party computation wallets. We also saw a surge of interest in on-chain insurance protocols. In the months that followed, Bybit embarked on a long and expensive road to redemption. The industry survived and in some ways emerged stronger and more self-aware. So it comes down to a simple question for you. Where do you choose to place your trust? Centralized convenience and insurance-backed promises? Or absolute sovereignty through self-custody? Your wallet is waiting for your decision.